Hi, my English buddies. Welcome to today's listening practice compilation.
The sun had been rising a little earlier each day, spilling its golden light through the big windows of a small flower shop that sat quietly at the corner of an old brick street. The summer air was thick but kind, and in that sleepy town where the pace of life rarely changed, Elise had grown used to the way mornings began slowly, like petals unfolding in warm light. She always opened her shop just after sunrise, before the world really woke up, and in that in-between hour, she felt like the flowers could breathe with her. Her shop wasn't much, just wood and glass and faded paint, but it held so much color it often felt like a dream. Buckets of peonies, sunflowers, baby's breath, and eucalyptus lined the walls like old friends who always showed up just when you needed them. Some days, Elise would hum as she trimmed the stems, not because she was happy in the way most people think of happiness, but because the quiet helped her feel okay. In fact, it was in that gentle silence where she found something close to peace, the kind that didn't demand too much from her, just a soft presence, just a breath. Summer made everything feel more alive, and yet for Elise, it always carried a soft ache she couldn't quite explain. The warm wind brushing against her cheek, the heavy scent of roses in the afternoon, the sound of cicadas buzzing like a lullaby. It all reminded her of someone she used to love. And even though years had passed since that goodbye, her heart still remembered things her mind had tried to forget. That's why she loved flowers so much. They never tried to say too much. They just bloomed quietly with no promises. She moved through her days with the grace of someone who had learned to live with a little bit of sadness tucked inside her chest. She didn't fight it anymore. Instead, she poured it into her work, into the soft curve of a tulip, into the careful layering of color, into the way she tied a ribbon like it meant something. And maybe it did. Maybe every bouquet was a small letter she was writing to the world, saying, "I'm still here. I'm still trying to find beauty, even when it hurts." Elise never rushed through her mornings. She liked watching the way the light filtered through the petals, how the dew clung to each bloom like a whispered secret. She noticed everything: the slow droop of a tired daisy, the bold stretch of sunflower reaching for the ceiling, the way a lavender sprig could change the mood of an entire arrangement. It made her feel grounded in a way people never really could. Her favorite part of summer was when the wildflowers came in. They weren't polished or perfect. They grew where no one asked them to, stubborn and free, and she liked to think she was a little like that too. Some mornings she'd mix wildflowers into the front window display, letting them stand messy and proud, not try to tame them, because not everything has to be neat to be beautiful. Even though she spent most of her time alone, Elise didn't feel lonely exactly. The flowers kept her company, and so did the memories. Sometimes they came gently, like a breeze through the open door, and other times they hit like thunder out of nowhere. But she let them come. She had stopped running from them long ago. One afternoon, as the sky turned that soft summer blue and the heat settled like a blanket over the town, Elise stood behind the counter, arranging sunflowers in tall vases. Her hands moved slowly, carefully, but her mind had drifted. The smell of honeysuckle had floated in through the open door, and just like that, a wave of memory washed over her. the kind that stopped time for just a second. She remembered that summer when everything changed, when laughter echoed in her ears and someone had held her hand like it meant everything. She remembered how that love felt like sunlight and how quickly it had disappeared, leaving her with shadows that didn't quite go away. She didn't cry, not anymore. But her chest tightened, and she placed the last sunflower down as if it weighed more than it should. Grief didn't always come loudly. Sometimes it just whispered, and Elise had learned to listen. But there was something beautiful about letting yourself feel things, even when they weren't easy. She believed that. The same way a flower bloomed, knowing it would fade, she let herself love and remember, knowing the ache that came with it. Because without that ache, what would anything mean? Later that day, when the sun was beginning to dip and everything outside was dipped in gold, she stepped outside with a glass of water and sat on the little wooden bench by the shop window. She looked around at the quiet street, the kids riding bikes with melted popsicles in hand, the sound of sprinklers ticking in someone's yard. Life was moving, always moving, even when she felt like standing still. The air smelled like jasmine and warm pavement, and she watched as one of her bouquets, left outside in a bucket for someone to take, was picked up by a stranger. They smiled, left a few coins in the jar marked "Pay what you feel," and walked off without a word. Elise smiled too, because that's why she did it. To remind someone, anyone, that beauty could be found in unexpected places. As the sky turned pink and the first stars blinked awake, she stood, stretched, and walked back in her little shop, where everything smelled like memories and new beginnings. She didn't turn on any lights. She let the last of the sun light the room instead, soft and golden and fading slowly. She looked at the flowers, some fresh, some beginning to wilt, and thought, maybe that's just how life is. Some things bloom, some things fade, but all of it matters. All of it is beautiful in its own way. And in that quiet moment, with her hands still slightly damp from the stems and her heart full of both joy and sorrow, Elise felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not peace exactly, but something like it. Maybe this is what healing looked like. Not sudden, not loud, not perfect, but slow, gentle, and full of soft things that kept growing, even when no one was watching. She closed the door gently behind her and left the shop as it was. Flowers asleep in the dark, waiting for tomorrow. The next morning came in soft, like a whispered promise. The sky was already glowing, even though the sun hadn't fully climbed up yet, and the air smelled like the in-between of night and day, warm, quiet, and filled with potential. Elise woke up before her alarm, not because she had to, but because she wanted to catch that golden hour, the one where everything looked just a little more magical. That's when she felt most herself, when the world was still stretching and yawning and hadn't remembered yet how to be busy. She made her way to the shop in her usual way, slow, unbothered, with a coffee in one hand and her hair pulled up in that messy way she never really tried to fix. The streets were still sleepy, and the birds were just starting their morning songs. It was simple, yes, but there was something sacred about those first few moments of the day when nothing had gone wrong yet and everything still felt possible. When she pushed open the door to the shop, the familiar scent of earth and petals greeted her, wrapping around her like a soft blanket. It never got old, how even wilted leaves had their own kind of charm, how the water in the buckets always held the smell of life. She moved through the space with a gentle kind of rhythm, brushing her fingers over stems, trimming here and there, and refilling the jars by the window. It felt like breathing, like prayer, like something quiet but necessary. And even though she had done this 100 times, maybe more, it never felt boring. That was the thing about working with flowers. Nothing stayed the same for long. What was blooming yesterday might fade today, and what looked closed today might surprise her tomorrow. It was a constant cycle of letting go and beginning again, and without realizing it, Elise had built her whole life around that idea. Sometimes, when she was in the middle of arranging something, a delicate mix of pastel ranunculus and bold marigolds, maybe she'd think about how strange and wonderful it was that colors could speak so loudly without saying a single word. Flowers had moods, just like people. They had stories too, and even though they couldn't explain themselves, they made people feel things. Joy, nostalgia, love, grief, hope. There was one arrangement she always made in the summer, something small and simple with sunflowers, chamomile, and little sprigs of mint. It reminded her of someone she used to know, someone who once picked wildflowers for her and tied them together with twine, saying that beauty didn't need to be expensive to matter. She never told anyone who it was for. She just made it quietly and left it in the front window like a little offering to the past. That day, she made 3 of them, not because anyone asked for them, but because her heart felt heavy, and sometimes the only way to lift it was to create something beautiful without expecting anything in return. Outside, the sun was getting higher, and the town was waking up. People began passing by the shop window, some on their way to the bakery down the street, others on their bikes, laughing, waving to neighbors. The rhythm of life moved on, like it always did, and Elise stood inside her little world of petals and silence, watching it all through the glass. There were moments, rare but real, when the ache inside her didn't feel so sharp. When the beauty she created softened the edges of her memories. When she realized that, even though she had lost things, people, time, parts of herself, she had also gained something. A stillness, a kind of knowing, a way of seeing the world that was slower, deeper, more tender. And maybe that was enough. As the afternoon light spilled into the shop and turned everything gold, she watered the last of the hydrangeas and wiped her hands on her apron, feeling the heat pressing against the glass like a warm reminder that summer was here to stay. For now, at least. The seasons always came and went, but the warmth of this one felt like it was asking her to stay just a little longer in the moment, to soak it in before it passed. She stepped outside again, just like the day before, and sat on that same bench, with her iced tea this time, not because she was thirsty, but because holding something cool felt nice against her sun-warmed skin. She watched the wind dance through the petals in the window, and she smiled. Not a big smile, but the soft kind that sneaks up on you when you realize you're okay. Maybe not fully healed, maybe not finished, but okay. And in that stillness, she didn't need anything more. Just the scent of flowers, the hum of summer air, the comfort of knowing that, in her own quiet way, she was still blooming too. She stayed on that bench longer than she usually did, not watching the time, not worrying about what came next, just letting the warm breeze play with the strands of her hair that had fallen loose. There was something about the way summer stretched itself out over everything, softly, without asking for permission, that reminded her to slow down too. And as she sat there, she felt the familiar hum of life in her chest again, like a quiet reminder that she was still here, still breathing, still capable of feeling something good. Eventually, the sun started dipping lower, casting long shadows across the sidewalk and turning the flower petals in the window a deeper shade of gold. Elise stood, brushing the back of her skirt as she made her way inside again, her fingers tracing the edge of the door frame like it was something sacred. She looked around the shop with fresh eyes, at the flowers that had opened a little wider in the heat, at the ones just beginning to wilt, at the empty jars waiting to be filled tomorrow, and for a moment, her chest filled with a kind of quiet pride. This place, these blooms, this rhythm she had made for herself, it wasn't loud or flashy, but it was real. And it was hers. She didn't need the world to notice it. She didn't need applause or attention or validation. She just needed to know that each day she was doing something that mattered, even if it was small. And maybe that was the most beautiful kind of life, the one that wasn't about chasing everything, but about noticing what was already there. Before closing the shop for the night, Elise did one last sweep of the space, tidying up here and there, tucking in petals, misting the more fragile blooms. Then she picked up the last arrangement she had made earlier, the one with sunflowers and chamomile and mint, and carried it outside. She placed it on the edge of the sidewalk, where the late sun could catch it just right. No note, no price tag, just a small jar of light for someone to find. She didn't wait to see who took it. That wasn't the point. Back inside, the light had faded almost completely, and the shop glowed in that dreamy way things do right before dark. She didn't turn on the overhead lights, choosing instead to let the string of little bulbs over the counter do the work, casting everything in soft yellow warmth. She moved slowly, like she was afraid to break the spell, and when she finally locked the door behind her, she paused for just a second to look back. The flowers slept in their vases, some standing tall, others beginning to lean, and the silence inside was thick with peace. Elise placed her palm against the cool glass, then turned and walked into the soft night, her steps unhurried, her breath steady. Outside, the town had grown quieter. The sounds of clinking dishes and faint laughter came from open windows. Streetlights flickered on like little stars waking up. And above it all, the sky stretched wide and deep, painted in the soft colors of a summer that still had more to say. Elise walked home the long way, through the side streets where the jasmine grew wild against the fences and the pavement still held the day's warmth. She liked how the night felt, how it wrapped around her gently instead of pressing down. It made her think about all the things she used to fear, all the parts of herself she used to hide, and how slowly, like the petals of a stubborn bloom, she had begun to open again. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. When she reached her apartment, she left the windows open and let the summer air drift in. She didn't turn on the TV. She didn't check her phone. Instead, she curled up on the couch with her legs tucked underneath her and stared out at the stars, listening to the hum of cicadas and the soft rustle of leaves in the trees. Her heart still carried the shape of grief, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It was softer now, like something smoothed by time. And maybe that was the point, that you don't get over things. You carry them with you, but you learn how to carry them gently. In the dark, with the scent of flowers still lingering on her skin and the quiet peace of a well-lived day wrapped around her shoulders, Elise closed her eyes and let herself rest. The world would turn again tomorrow, and she would wake up with the sun, open her little shop, and begin again. And somehow, in this small and steady way, she was healing, one bloom at a time.
My heart is in summer. Hey there, my name's Lily. If there's one thing you should know about me, it's this simple truth that wraps around my heart like the warm rays of the sun. I am completely, utterly, hopelessly in love with summer. If summer were a person, I'd probably write them handwritten love letters, sing them songs under the sparkling stars, and dance barefoot with them in the golden rain of the evening. Summer isn't just a season to me. It's my happy place, my cozy blanket on chilly days, my favorite old song softly playing on repeat. When summer rolls in, it feels as if the whole world takes a deep breath and smiles along with me. The air turns warm and lazy, as if it's offering everyone a gentle hug that lingers just a little longer than usual. The sky stretches wide and endless, painted in the softest shades of blue, with puffy white clouds lazily drifting by, like they're too relaxed to hurry anywhere. And the sun? Oh, the sun feels like my best friend, shining kindly on my face, wrapping me in a golden warmth that seeps right into my soul. One of my absolute favorite things about summer is the breeze. This wind. It's a soft, whispering friend who brushes past my cheeks, plays with my hair, and tickles my skin in the most playful way. I love closing my eyes and feeling it glide over me, cool and sweet, like nature's way of saying, "Hey Lily, take a deep breath. Life is good." Then there's the sound of the trees. You might think trees are quiet, but in summer, they have their own little orchestra. Their leaves rustle and giggle when the breeze passes through, creating this soft, magical music that makes my heart dance. Sometimes I sit under my favorite old oak tree just listening. No phone, no noise, just me and the rustling leaves whispering secrets back and forth. Of course, no summer day is complete without my favorite treats. I always have a big pitcher of fresh orange juice ready in the fridge. You know that feeling when you take a sip of cold, sweet, slightly tangy juice on a hot afternoon? It's like fireworks in your mouth, bright, refreshing, and totally perfect. And don't even get me started on watermelon. Oh my gosh. Juicy, pink, sweet, and ice cold from the fridge. I could eat a whole one by myself if no one stopped me. I love biting into a thick slice, letting the juice drip down my chin, and not caring one bit. That's summer happiness right there. But honestly, the best part of my summer days is playing in the little river behind our house. It's not big, but it's mine. Well, kind of. The water is cool and clear, and the river sings a bubbly little song as it skips over the rocks. I love rolling up my jeans, splashing through the shallow parts, and feeling the tiny pebbles under my feet. Sometimes, I sit on the big flat rock in the middle of the stream and let the water swirl around me, laughing as it tries to pull me in with its tiny hands. And you know what's even better? Fishing. Yep, I'm that girl who likes to fish in the summer. I grab my little fishing rod, pack a small lunch, and spend the afternoon trying to catch something, anything, from the sparkling water. Most days, I'm not even trying that hard. It's just peaceful sitting there, with the sun on my back, the breeze brushing past, and the gentle babble of the river keeping me company. When I do catch a fish, usually a tiny one, I get so excited you'd think I'd won a prize. In the evening, my family and I build a small fire by the riverbank. The sky slowly turns from soft blue to lavender to deep velvet purple, and the first stars shyly peek out from behind the clouds. We grill the fish over the crackling fire, and the smoky, salty smell fills the air, mixing with the sweet scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. We sit on an old checkered blanket, munching on fish and roasted corn, sipping orange juice or lemonade, and telling silly stories until our bellies hurt from laughing. Sometimes, when the night grows quiet, we just sit there in comfortable silence, watching the fireflies dance like tiny floating stars and listening to the night breeze hum a gentle lullaby. Summer nights have their own kind of magic. The air feels softer somehow, cooler but still wrapped in that summer warmth, like the earth is tucking itself in for the night. The crickets start their evening symphony, chirping away like they're having the biggest concert of the year. And above it all, the stars twinkle so brightly, like they're winking down at us, sharing our secret little world. There's something so freeing about summer. It's like for a few precious months, the world gives you permission to slow down, breathe deeper, laugh louder, and live a little wilder. School's out, alarms are forgotten, and every day feels like an open book waiting for a brand new adventure. I love how in summer, my bare feet get tough and scruffy from running across the grass and jumping over rocks. My hair gets messy from the wind, and my skin smells like sunshine and river water. I love waking up early just to catch the sunrise painting the sky in pink and orange brushstrokes, or staying up late to count shooting stars. Even the little things feel special in summer, like lying on the grass, watching the clouds drift by, and playing the "what does that cloud look like" game, or chasing butterflies and laughing when they outsmart me. Or helping my grandma pick wildflowers from the meadow and tying them into messy, colorful bouquets that she puts in mason jars all over the house. And the rain. Don't even get me started on summer rain. It's not the cold, miserable kind that makes you hide inside. It's warm and playful, like the sky is splashing us for fun. I love running outside barefoot when it rains, arms outstretched, spinning and laughing like the happiest kid alive. The puddles become my dance floor, and the raindrops tap on the leaves like tiny drummers keeping the beat. I know some people say summer is too hot, too sticky, too loud with bugs and lawnmowers and screaming kids. But to me, that's the sound of life. Messy, loud, wonderful life. Summer feels alive in a way no other season does. It makes me feel alive, too, like my heart is wide open, soaking in every sound, smell, and sunshine beam. So, yeah, maybe I'm a little obsessed, but can you blame me? When the days are long and golden, and the nights are soft and starry, and everything feels possible, how could I not be in love with summer? Sometimes I wonder if summer loves me back. Maybe that's why the wind always finds its way to my window, why the river always sings when I'm near, and why the fireflies always seem to follow me home. Maybe summer and I are kindred spirits, two wild hearts who found each other in a world that sometimes forgets how to slow down and just be. Anyway, that's my story. Just a girl and her favorite season. Chasing sunshine, splashing in rivers, and eating way too much watermelon. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Enjoying the morning sunshine. There's something undeniably magical about the sunshine in the morning. It's gentle, kind, almost like a friend who's happy to see you after a long night. When the first golden streaks of sunlight spill over the rooftops and trickle through the curtains, it almost feels like the universe is softly welcoming me to start the day. And you know what? I love that. I love the way the sun, still shy and sleepy, slowly stretches across the sky and even painting everything it touches with warmth and hope. Then the morning sun isn't like the harsh afternoon blaze that demands sunglasses and shade. No. It's softer, warmer, and kinder. It's like a tender hug or a warm blanket after a cold dream. There's something incredibly personal about the sunlight at 7 a.m., as if it's not just lighting up the world, but lighting up your world. When I open the windows and let the fresh, crisp air pour in, it feels like I'm letting the universe breathe with me. The sun up there in the sky doesn't rush. It rises slowly, gently. It takes its time to climb over the sleepy rooftops, dancing on the leaves, and kissing the dew off the grass. The trees outside my window begin to glow, as if someone lit them from the inside. Their leaves turn from a sleepy green to a vibrant emerald, twinkling like they've been waiting for this exact moment to shine. And the sky in the early morning. I can tell that it is a masterpiece. It's not just blue, but has a gradient of emotion. It's also pale near the horizon and almost shy, then it deepens into a soft, baby blue that feels like calmness itself. Sometimes there are little cotton candy clouds floating around, lazily drifting, still undecided about where they want to go. They don't move with purpose, but they float like they're enjoying the moment too. Birds outside my window, those little morning artists, chirp as if they're singing praises to the sun. Their songs weave into the warm air like creating a kind of peaceful soundtrack that can't be replicated by any device. It's as if nature itself composes a new melody each morning, a quiet reminder that even on the hardest days, beauty begins again. My coffee always tastes better in the sunshine. There's something about sitting near the window or on the porch, warm mug in hand, and letting the sunlight touch your skin. It's like a quiet blessing from the universe. The steam from the cup rises like soft smoke signals, fading into the golden morning light. The aroma dances with the fresh scent of earth, of dew, of flowers just waking up. The plants on my windowsill lean toward the light, as if they're hungry for it. Their leaves open up wide and also stretching as if they're trying to touch the sun itself. It's funny how something so small can feel so alive, so responsive to something as simple as light. I like to think they're smiling, that they're just as happy to see the sunshine as I am. The sunshine makes shadows too, but even the shadows feel soft in the morning. They stretch long and elegant across the floor, shifting slowly as the sun climbs higher. I like watching how the light changes over time, how the golden hour becomes more golden, how the light that first entered the room timidly becomes bold, filling every corner with a kind of quiet pride. And the way that sunlight feels on my skin, it's not hot but warm like a hug of a mother, like something familiar and something from childhood. It reminds me of days when I'd sit outside with bare feet in the grass, listening to the world wake up. That kind of light makes you feel connected to yourself, to nature, and to everything. Sometimes I lie down and just let the sunlight wash over me. It doesn't judge. It doesn't ask anything from me. It just is. And in that, there's peace. There's a sense of presence that I don't always feel during the busy hours of the day. The sunlight reminds me that just put me in the first place is enough, like taking a rest sometimes. And it's okay to be selfish. Everything looks more beautiful in the morning light. The flowers look fresher, the walls look warmer, even the dust particles floating in the air look like tiny pieces of glitter caught in a slow dance. The sunshine turns the ordinary into something gentle, golden, almost holy. It's like a filter made of kindness. Even the streets outside seem to wear a different face. The pavement glows faintly, like it's holding on to the warmth from yesterday. Cars are fewer, quieter. The world hasn't fully awakened yet, and in that half-sleepy state, everything feels softer, like reality has its guard down. It's easier to breathe, easier to think, easier to just be. Sunlight touches everything, even things you don't expect. It crawls up the sides of buildings, glows on the petals of tiny flowers peeking through cracks in the sidewalk, flickers and puddles like golden coins tossed in by the sky. It finds its way through windows, cracks, and leaves, always gentle, always patient. It never demands attention, but it always transforms the space it enters. Sometimes I walk barefoot on the patio or grass when the sunlight is still new in the morning and when the sky still has purple in it. The ground is cool but welcoming my feet so gently, and the sunlight makes every step feel a little more alive than yesterday. The shadows of tree branches move slightly with the breeze, flickering across the skin like whispers. The warmth from my sweater wraps around my shoulders. Moreover, I can tell you proudly that the sunlight is a storyteller too. It tells stories through warmth and color, through reflection and glow. A glass of water becomes a prism, a mirror becomes a portal, and a puddle becomes a glowing mirror to the sky. Every object it touches becomes more than it was a moment before. A blanket tossed on the couch becomes a sun-drenched comfort zone. Or even a cat sleeping on the floor becomes a royal figure, bathed in golden spotlight. There's something deeply comforting about watching the world fill with light. It's like watching someone smile in slow motion. It reminds you that no matter how heavy the day and the night was, the sun will always rise. No matter how tired they are, how lost they feel, or how quiet their heart has become, the sunlight still shows up, just for them. If I can describe it, the sunshine in the morning feels like a promise. A quiet one, and the kind that doesn't need big words or loud announcements. It simply arrives, then steady and true, rising in the sky high. And with it, it brings the subtle joy of existence, like the way air feels in your lungs, the way light plays on your skin, or the way silence isn't empty, but full of tiny life. Even on days when I wake up tired and when the world feels overwhelming, the sunshine still finds a way to make me pause to notice and to breathe a little, then sit still with my thoughts and let them stretch out in the morning light. It feels like an invitation to be human after working for the whole day. It like tell me to not to do anything for a moment, not to rush my job, and just to feel my tiredness is not good for my body if I'm forcing me to do my job over and over. I don't always have time to go for a walk actually, but on the days I do, walking in the early sunshine feels like therapy. Trees rustle gently above, casting dappled light that flickers across the path like starlight in motion. The leaves glow from the inside, every green more alive than the last. The air is cool, but the sun cuts through it like honey. Sometimes I find a quiet spot, maybe under a tree or by a fence where flowers are blooming lazily. I just sit there and enjoy the moment of silence. I don't even need to think. The sunshine does those kind of things for me. It carries a calm to my inner self, and it feels like all the little things that usually buzz in my brain have decided to take a nap. And as the minutes tick by, the sunshine grows braver, warmer, and brighter. It brings color back into the world, makes the red of the roses more intense, the blue of the sky deeper, or the green of the grass more vibrant. It turns the whole world into a painting that's still wet, still alive, still full of possibility. And isn't that beautiful? That something as simple, as consistent, as every day as the sun rising could still feel like a gift? Like a soft miracle that we get to unwrap every single morning? Furthermore, even the silence is golden in the morning sun. It's not empty silence. It's full of birdsong, distant rustling, maybe the faint sound of someone's coffee machine humming in another house. But it's peaceful. It's the kind of silence that lets you hear your heartbeat, the wind sigh, and the breath of the earth. The kind that reminds you you're alive. So I savor it, every golden second. I let the sun write stories on my skin. I let it soften the sharp corners in my mind. I let it hold me gently before the chaos of the day begins. And in those precious moments, I remember something simple yet powerful. I've arrived at another sunrise. I matter more than I know. And no matter what, there's still so much wonder wrapped in the light of a new day. And as the minutes tick by, the sunshine grows braver, warmer, and brighter. It brings color back into the world, makes the red of the roses more intense, the blue of the sky deeper, or the green of the grass more vibrant. It turns the whole world into a painting that's still wet, still alive, still full of possibility. And isn't that beautiful? He's a boy I know. He's a boy I know. The quiet kind, the one who speaks less but feels deeply, whose world is a little softer, a little quieter, when he's holding a book. Not to impress you with how many stories he's read, or to paint him as some kind of extraordinary soul, but simply because there's a gentle truth in the way he lives, and that quiet truth is something worth sharing. This is the story of that boy. A boy who found peace, purpose, and pieces of himself between the pages. He's not the type to talk much about himself, but if you've ever watched him with a novel in his hands, you'd know that something magical happens when he reads. You'd see the way his eyes soften, the way he forgets to blink, the way the noise of everything else disappears. Ever since he was a little boy, Daniel had always been captivated by the quiet beauty of books, though he never really understood why it was easier to sit still with a book than with people, and perhaps that was the very beginning of it all. It wasn't just about reading for him, it was about disappearing into another world, one carefully crafted by someone he had never met, yet felt deeply connected to through every word and every line that danced before his eyes. As he grew older and the world became louder, faster, and far more demanding, Daniel found comfort in turning to novels, his own personal sanctuary, a retreat where no one could interrupt his thoughts. He had read so many different genres over the years that he sometimes lost track of how many lives he had lived through the pages of those books. He had been a detective chasing down serial killers in the dark alleys of fictional cities, a heartbroken lover in a rainy French village, a courageous knight in faraway kingdoms where dragons still roamed, and even a time traveler who drifted between centuries with nothing but a journal and a sense of loss. Although he explored stories from every corner of imagination, there was something about coming-of-age novels that always tugged at his soul the most, especially the ones where the main character was struggling to understand who they were or where they belonged. Those stories often mirrored his own quiet introspection, and as he read them, he felt less alone in the world. There was a novel he had read when he was 16. It's a quiet, haunting tale about a boy who had lost his father and went on a long walk across the country to scatter his ashes. That novel didn't have dramatic twists or cinematic heroism, but its gentleness, its raw honesty, and its emotional clarity had changed something in Daniel. It was the story that had turned reading from a casual habit into a lifelong passion. Since then, reading became more than just a hobby. It was an emotional lifeline, especially during the moments when life felt like too much or not enough. During long train rides when the world outside blurred into a silent movie, during sleepless nights when anxiety clung to his chest like a heavy coat, or during quiet afternoons when the sun spilled through the window and everything felt a little too still, he would reach for a book, and suddenly, the air felt lighter. Reading didn't solve his problems, but it gave him the space to breathe through them. In time, Daniel realized that reading expanded more than just his imagination. It reshaped his worldview. Through novels, he learned about injustice in faraway lands, the emotional weight of historical trauma, the quiet resilience of marginalized voices, and the beauty of cultures he had never encountered in his daily life. There was a story about a woman who fled war carrying only her memories and her child, and another about a teenage boy growing up in poverty, dreaming of becoming an artist despite everything that told him he couldn't. These stories weren't just fiction. They were windows into truths he might never have seen otherwise. Slowly, the more he read, the more he felt connected to the world, even if he often felt like an outsider in it. Moreover, reading had this strange way of revealing parts of himself he didn't know how to name. There were days when he felt confused about his purpose, about why he felt empty even when life seemed fine on the surface. But then, he would stumble across a passage where a character asked the very question he had been silently carrying in his chest, and suddenly, it was like someone had turned on a light inside him. Reading validated his emotions. It told him it was okay to not have it all figured out, that questioning things was part of being human. Often, after finishing a novel, Daniel would sit in silence for a while, just holding the book in his hands, staring into the space beyond the last sentence. It was a sacred kind of stillness, not empty, but full, with reflection, gratitude, and a quiet ache that came from letting go of characters he had grown to love. He believed that every book left a subtle fingerprint on his soul, shaping him in ways he might never fully understand. He had shelves full of stories, not just for the sake of collecting them, but because each one had marked a different version of himself. Even when life got busy and days blurred into routines, Daniel made time to read, not out of obligation, but out of necessity. It was his way of reconnecting with himself, especially when the world demanded so much noise. Sometimes, people asked him why he read so much, and he'd smile softly, never quite knowing how to explain that reading was how he survived the chaos, how he processed grief, how he dreamed of things bigger than himself. Even when life got busy and days blurred into routines, Daniel made time to read, not out of obligation, but out of necessity. It was his way of reconnecting with himself, especially when the world demanded so much noise. Sometimes, people asked him why he read so much, and he'd smile softly, never quite knowing how to explain that reading was how he survived the chaos, how he processed grief, how he dreamed of things bigger than himself. And although he had friends, colleagues, and people who cared about him, there were parts of him that only books understood. Parts that felt too tender, too complex, or too abstract to be voiced aloud. When he read, he could be vulnerable without fear, curious without boundaries, hopeful without shame. He had read love stories that mended pieces of him he didn't realize were broken, psychological thrillers that reminded him of the fragility of perception, science fiction tales that stretched his thoughts beyond the sky, and philosophical novels that whispered questions into his heart late into the night. Each genre had its role, its moment when it became exactly what he needed. Most of all, reading gave Daniel peace. It wasn't always a loud joy, but rather a quiet, steady kind, the kind that wrapped around him like a warm blanket on a cold evening. It grounded him when his mind wandered too far, calmed him when emotions threatened to overflow, and brought clarity when problems tangled themselves into knots. It wasn't that he found answers in books, but that books helped him ask better questions. Whenever he found himself stuck in the same thoughts, unsure about a decision, weighed down by guilt, or just worn out from being strong too long, he would lose himself in a book, and without even realizing it, find a path back to himself. Some stories didn't offer solutions, but they gave him metaphors and characters that helped him see things differently. And sometimes, that shift in perspective was all he needed to move forward. His favorite time to read was just after midnight, when the world around him quieted and he could hear his thoughts clearly, without interruption. There was something magical about the darkness, how it heightened his focus, how it made the story feel more intimate. Under the dim light of his bedside lamp, with only the soft hum of the city in the distance, he would turn each page like he was unwrapping a secret. The solitude didn't make him lonely. It made him whole. Though Daniel had dreams of traveling, meeting new people, and experiencing life in its full color, he knew that books had already given him 1,000 lives and 1,000 paths. They didn't replace real-life experience, but they enriched it. Because of books, he noticed the little things, how the sky shifted in color when the sun rose, how a stranger's smile could carry a story, how silence often spoke louder than words. He loved the way novels could carry both pain and hope in the same sentence, how a single chapter could feel like therapy, and how an ending, even a tragic one, could leave him feeling strangely healed. Every book he read left echoes in his mind, echoes that sometimes returned when he least expected them. A phrase, a moment, a character's bravery, they lingered like old friends. And while Daniel knew that he would never have enough time to read every book ever written, he also knew that wasn't the point. Reading wasn't about finishing, it was about experiencing, about immersing, about connecting. The act of reading itself was what mattered. So he kept reading, not to escape life, but to understand it better. Not to run away from problems, but to see them with softer eyes. Not to replace reality, but to enhance it. And in every story he read, he found a little piece of himself, waiting to be discovered. Because in the end, Daniel didn't just love stories. He lived through them, healed through them, grew through them. And as long as there were stories to be told, he knew he would never truly be alone. Maybe he'll never write a book of his own. Maybe his story will never be told in grand chapters or echoed across generations. But somehow, through every story he reads, he's already leaving something behind. Not in fame, not in recognition, but in the quiet way he chooses to understand instead of judge, to imagine instead of ignore, and to feel deeply even when no one's watching. That's what reading gave him, a heart that listens before it speaks, and a mind that keeps asking questions even when there are no answers. And perhaps, in the end, that's the kind of life that matters most. Not the loudest one, but the one shaped by stories, tender, thoughtful, and wide open to the world.
Boom, boom.